Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, continues now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for March 27th in the year of our Lord, 2025. The goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and to do so on your radio in the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed, using the checks and balances brilliantly put in place by our founders, and using the supreme law of the land, the supreme law of the land, I might add, the rule of law in America today. Any law that conflicts with the supreme law of the land is a law that never was. They call it pretend legislation. And we reject revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution, and then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. My dear buddy, Alex Newman, libertysentinel.org with me now, doing a phenomenal job as always. He's got a great column out I want to talk about. Welcome to the show, sir.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Sam.
It's libertysentinel.org, right?
That's right, and thenewamerican.com.
And you are the CEO of Liberty Sentinel, which is your journalistic productions, if you will. It's articles, it's videos, it's basically talk shows. It's a whole lot more. You do some incredible interviews over there, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. I appreciate it. It's a great honor, and it's been a pleasure to be able to work with you as well. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I've got two topics I want to talk about today. We'll get into the war topic a little later. But first, you've written an incredible article. It's a newscast about the new media taking center stage. Really, it's about the yesteryear media melting down. I'm finding the two happening at the same time, right?
They are happening at the same time, and of course, it's intimately related, right? The old legacy media, the establishment media, the fake media, whatever you want to call it, is dying, and that is demonstrable. That is provable. You can just look at their numbers. Their numbers are in the toilet. They're having to fire huge numbers of people, whether it's the AP, the Washington Compost, CNN, MSNBC. And not only are they firing people, the people that they're keeping, they're drastically cutting their salaries. And this is happening at every level, Sam. It's not just the national fake media. Even the local fake media is dying. And that's not because people don't want news. It's not because people don't want to know what's going on. It's because people do want to know what's going on, and they're tired of liars and left-wing propaganda.
Yeah, they're dying because they're lying. That's the bottom line, right?
Precisely. It's exactly. And so there's a big open space in the market now. There's a big void that is being filled by people who are delivering information, but who are telling the truth. It's really not that complicated. You know, you can fool some people some of the time, but as the old cliche goes, you can't fool all the people all the time. And people are catching on to the fact that they're being lied to, and they don't like it. And they don't like to see endless advertisements for vaccines followed by, you must take your vaccine or you're a bad human being, under the guise of news. And so that business model is dying, and I suspect it's really a zombie. It's walking dead. And in its place are rising independent voices, alternative voices that have a truthful track record and are interested in delivering useful and accurate information to Americans.
Now, we're finding out from Doge and from other places, too, that what's kept their lies alive is this money that we, the taxpayers, are funding them. I mean, a great example of it is I have to pay for NPR to succeed, plus pay for my own companies to succeed.
Right.
And I don't get a choice in that. You know, I'm paying to fund my competition. It's insanity. But people are starting to realize, too, that the only way they've been able to continue to peddle their lies and tell the tale of falsehoods and do what they do is because we've been funding them. And without that funding, they're realizing it ain't sustainable, right?
That's right. And we saw that with some of what was exposed from USAID. Huge amounts of money going to the lying, dishonest, fake media propagandists, whether it's Reuters, whether it's Politico, whether it's any of these things. They're operating on tax money. They're operating on Communist Chinese Party money. And that's because regular Americans are not interested in funding this nonsense. So that's very encouraging. And again, we're seeing this across all media, across cable TV. We're seeing it across national newspapers. We're seeing it across local newspapers. But despite the rigging of the algorithms, despite the efforts to ban leading alternative media figures, it's not working, right? No matter how bad they rig the algorithms, people are just tuning out of the fake media, and they're actively going out and looking for truthful information. So, again, very encouraging to see this, Sam.
So let me ask you this, because you and I have been in the new media taking center stage for a long time. We've never been funded by the big networks. We've never had massive salaries. We've never been compromised and controlled to any degree. But I look at a Glenn Beck, or I look at a Bill O'Reilly, or I look at a Megan, whatever her name is, or I look at a lot of these people, Tucker Carlson. They've all worked for the big media. And when they worked for the big media, they were forced to toe that line. And they tried to, report a little bit, maybe, but for the most part, they were controlled. For the most part, they didn't have the guts to take on the topics that we take on or whatever. However, when they all get let go, or when transition happened, when Glenn went from CNN to Fox, he got a little bit better. Not great, but a little bit better. Then he said, hey, he wanted to talk about God, and Fox shut him down, so that was the separation. And now Glenn Beck does, a pretty good job at reporting, comparatively speaking. He used to be a con guy. Now he's like, no, that's as foolish as it gets. Now he's telling our tale of truth, if you will. But I look at these guys, whether it be Megan or Bill O'Reilly or Glenn Beck or, whoever the case may be, Tucker Carlson, and now that they're kind of independent and on their own, they're not controlled in what they say, and they tell a lot more truth, and you can see it clearly. However, I wonder about people like that and how much they can really be even trusted to this day. Were they just controlled and they couldn't help it? Was it all for the money that they did it, or was it like they thought that was the only career they could have and now they've learned different, or the market's opened up to be different? What do you think about this change for all these people? Every one of them, when they get let go, they turn way more conservative. But I don't know that I can trust them. Okay, they don't have the smooth, clean track record that you and I do, which is we tell the tale of truth because that's in our hearts and our souls. They almost tell whatever tale needs to be told for the cash. At least it used to be. Anyway, it just makes me wonder. Alex?
Yeah, and I think it's always good for us to take stuff with a grain of salt. We trust God, not man, as the Bible says over and over again, right? Put not your trust in men, put not your trust in princes. And so, I think it's always good to approach everything and everyone with a degree of skepticism, even if they're saying the right thing 90% of the time. Now, I do think people like Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson, after they left the major mainstream outlets, did become significantly better. And delivered significantly more truth. And that's been true of a lot of these people. You mentioned several of them, and there are many others. The Clayton Morris over at Redacted. He was with Fox and Friends, and he left. And frankly, I think he does a better job now that he's on his own. So there's a lot of these guys.
Better job.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's encouraging to see that. And what it shows is that even people who do want to deliver the truth, when they're working for the big establishment media outlets, are shackled in terms of what they can say. And so I think it's always good to approach these things with a degree of skepticism. And that's one of the great things about what's happening to the media landscape is it's really being democratized. Now we don't have to go just to a handful of and it was so interesting, Sam. That's interesting that we're talking about this. I was in journalism school about 15 years ago, and these goofy university professors, the former executive editor of such and such big newspaper, over and over again. I think I must have heard this 100 times in every major journalism class I took. You guys are the gatekeepers. You will decide what people see. And I'm thinking, man, these guys must be living in the last couple of decades. I mean, they must not have heard of the internet. Like, what? And we're so far past this idea of a gatekeeper now because of some of the new technologies, because of this democratization of the news media space. And that's a very good thing. And it makes it even harder for bad actors to try to lie. So even if some of these guys that you mentioned are not fully above board, if they want to keep their audience, at this point they know they've got to be telling the truth as best as they see it rather than being deceitful. And so this is very encouraging.
And I get the difference of opinion, and I get the difference in delivery, but I noticed some things that it's fascinating. So the AP's melting down because they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar and literally lying and peddling propaganda. So now the AP's melting down, but people like Your News kind of taking their place. I mean, any of us can get a Your News account, as long as we can, show that what we have has legitimacy and passes muster, the who, what, when, where, why scenario. Then it can be published on Your News. I mean, even the AP's getting supplanted. Now that's saying something.
It is, and actually, I think this is another one of the most encouraging developments in the media landscape is that as all these local newspapers are dying and they're doing the mass layoffs, they're hardly even covering local stuff anymore. It's just dumb wire stories and left-wing propaganda posing as national and international news.
Toss in a little bit of high school sports and a couple of weird love columns, and that's about it, right?
Right, exactly, and then maybe a nice crossword puzzle just to keep the older retirees reading the dumb thing. But that's going the way of the dodo bird, and you look in all over the country, these local newspapers are struggling to survive, and it's not because again people don't want local news. People do want local news. Local news is absolutely essential to the
In
functioning
fact,
of a
local
free
is king
society.
if you really want to know the truth, if it's done right.
Absolutely. And so, when I saw your news, I was like, wow, man, these guys have the technology and the business model to really take over here in a way that does democratize the delivering of local news and even national news, and also in a way that's going to be a very successful business model, because what they can do is they can target not just the news stories to particular geographies down to the zip code, the city, the media market, whatever parameters you choose, but also they can target the advertisements in that way. So I think what's happening here, I mean, and if it's not your news, it's going to be some other company that's doing the same thing. This is going to end up eventually undermining what's left of these and we call them local newspapers. Many of them now are owned by big national chains, New York Slimes, Gannett, etc. I think this is going to roll up that competition, partly because it's a better business model, but also partly because people are sick of the lies and the propaganda. So it's very encouraging to see this too.
And let me tell you one thing I see that's still a difference, and it's still a hurdle we need to overcome. And I want to get your take on this, Alex. So a lot of what the Glenn Becks of the world will do, and I'm not here to down Glenn. He's really, I mean, I got to give Glenn a lot of credit. He's admitted when he's wrong. That's hard to do. And so I give him some credit. This isn't a trash Glenn Beck idea. But whether it's any of these talk show hosts, they used to just literally peddle propaganda. And they were forced to by their networks. Megyn Kelly is who I was thinking of, and others. And they're doing a lot better now. That's great. But what I find often is they're very good at telling the tale of the problem, and they nail it. Hey, the problem is this, and they really, they get great guests on. They drill down. But what they do is they forget about that last mile. They forget about the solution. In other words, telling me a problem and getting me all whipped up into a frenzy of frustration and feel like my hands are tied. And when I get done with the show, I just I feel more depressed than when I started or whatever. They don't take you the last mile. And what I like about what you do and many of us do now is it's bring people all the way across the finish line. Here's the problem, but here's how we solve it. Here's the problem, but here's the answer. Here's the problem, but here's the way out of the problem. And so a lot of these people are doing a great job, but they don't cover that last mile. They don't literally push and, break the tape at the finish line. And that's what the best hosts do. And that's why I can just literally look at a host, listen to what they have to say. And at the end, if I don't have a solution to every problem, if I don't have an answer or a guide, even if I don't agree with their answer, at least they've come up with one. At least they take you to the finish line in their view or their understanding. But many of these hosts still don't understand that piece. You do. There's a few of us that do. But that's really where they need to get to next, in the next evolution of the new media taking center stage, Alex.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's an important part of the job of journalists and people who are delivering information is not just tell you the problem. It's easy enough to see the problem, but also put some context around that. How did this problem develop? It's like a doctor. It's fine to say, hey, you have a problem, but you have to give some more specifics. Why do you have a problem? How do you fix that problem? Well, you have cancer. Now you're going to die. Oh, okay, well, that's not all that helpful, right? Better solution is, hey, you have cancer. Here's some of the likely reasons why you have cancer. You're eating a bunch of toxic junk, whatever. If you want to fix that in a sustainable way, here are some things that people have done in the past that seem to be effective, right?
And you may not even be able to fix it in your situation because you waited too long, but you have children and grandchildren or societal application. This can be fixed. We've learned from this generation that, hey, we don't want these food colorings in all of our stuff, whatever the case may be. We don't want these toxins. The answer going forward, whether you can save yourself or not, is a societal answer. It's an understanding and then an application of that understanding to, well, repentance is to change, or change is to change. And I'm talking about change with results that are factual, not just change Obama style, but real change, repentance kind of change for the better, right?
Absolutely, yep. And I think that's an essential part of this puzzle. People have been unfortunately dumbed down now and indoctrinated for several generations, and so we've got to get back to a broader understanding of what's really going on, rather than these little small sound bites and stuff that passes for anti-social media. So we really do need to have deeper coverage, broader coverage, and of course, truth-telling is just absolutely essential.
So tell me the name of this column over at libertysentinel.org.
The name of what?
What you wrote at libertysentinel.org on the media. There's a title for this. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we sent that out this morning through our newsletter, and I'm not even sure we have posted it yet. No, we haven't even posted it yet on the actual website. So right now, that's just for our newsletter subscribers. It will eventually go up.
All right, then I guess I'm just an insider a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. If you go to libertysentinel.org, you can become an insider too and get the heads up. It'll be out soon. But give us the title of it, though. The title's very interesting.
Yes, let me pull it up. It is media.
I'm sorry. Normally I have that title in front of me, but I'm on the road and I've got an IT issue that makes my audio choppy if I leave my browser.
I've got it right
so
here.
I can't. Anyway,
So,
I apologize.
Here's the title. It's Legacy Media in Free Fall Amid Mass Firings and Loss of Trust.
Okay, and that I want to focus on, this loss of trust. The politicians have lost our trust. The media has lost our trust. Almost every big entity has completely lost our trust, whether it's big corporations trashing our food, whether it's, this is a colossal global issue, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the reshaping of one of the most important industries in the world. And, people need to be aware of this. People need to get ahead of this. And so, from the perspective of people who want to contribute to this new media landscape, there's a lot of opportunities. From the perspective of people who want to invest and be a part of this as somebody with equity, there's opportunities there. From the perspective of people who just want good, reliable, honest, accurate local news, there's great opportunities. So this is something that people ought to get ahead of. You don't want to be the last one to join the party on any of these fronts. And I definitely encourage people to check it out and learn more.
Now, Ronald Reagan used to say, trust but verify. And I think we're even past that old adage. I think we basically need to say, verify so you can trust.
Absolutely.
But what do you think of that?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Sam. At this point, after all the lies and the deception that Americans have endured over the last few generations, we should not be blindly trusting anybody. And I think, as we talked about earlier in the program, Sam, I think the presumption needs to be that we do not trust in men. We know from the Bible teaches that the heart of man is desperately wicked. So even people that seem and sound trustworthy, we need to take what they're saying with a grain of salt. Does it line up with what we know to be true? Does it line up with what the scriptures teach? If it's political or related to government, does it line up with our constitutional system? And if not, we ought to be very, very skeptical.
So I had a listener text me just yesterday and said, hey, Sam, now we hear from several people that because of the dump of the JFK files, Israel's the one that killed JFK. Is that accurate? I can't verify the story. And I wrote back and said, you know what? I don't know that we're ever going to get the real handle on what happened. I appreciate what's come out. I know it points to certain places, but man, there's so many viewpoints on what happened. I don't know that we're ever going to get the real pay dirt. That's my take.
Yeah, and I think that's probably correct. And one of the things that we see with things like this assassination is that the people who were behind it put out so many different theories and so many breadcrumbs leading to false answers that 50, 60, 70, 80 years after, it becomes almost impossible to sort it out. And that's not to demoralize people. I think we should keep searching for answers. Some of the people involved may still be alive today, right? And so I don't think it's something that we give up on, but I think realistically, it's going to be very, very difficult to ever fully understand. I did see Grok put together a very, very interesting analysis of all the documents that have just recently been declassified, and it actually suggested that there may have been, I can even quote from it, I have it handy, I think. Let me see where I put it. Yeah, here it is. It's incredible what Grok came up with, and I thought it was just as good.
And I think it's very insightful, and I think it's very factual, but I just don't know if all the conclusions can be counted on for sure.
Absolutely.
I just don't know.
Absolutely. So here was the conclusion from Grok.
And that's not downing anybody who's done that research. I'm not downing them or saying they're lying or they're wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm not really convinced. I know enough about history to know that we don't really know. Right?
Absolutely. And fake documents can be planted, and as we discussed. But here was the conclusion from Grok that I thought was interesting. The 31,419 pages reframe the JFK assassination as a multifaceted conspiracy involving the CIA, Mafia, Secret Service, Soviet Cuban elements, and potentially LBJ himself, with Oswald as a funded patsy rather than a lone gunman. The exhaustive review uncovers a web of pre-assassination plotting, on-the-ground execution by multiple shooters, and a post-event cover-up orchestrated at the highest levels. While the Warren Commission 64 report and the House whatever it is, HSCA's 1979 conspiracy nod shaped public understanding, these files, spanning early Oswald surveillance to LBJ's cryptic memo, offer a depth and specificity that could rewrite history if authentic. But no, I'm with you, Sam. At this
if
point,
authentic.
So
well, how do we know that? How do we really double down? Look, you look at the USS Liberty 4 short years later, and you go, man, Israel was pretty much against us in the 60s too, even though we were supposedly their friends. And you kind of go there and say, was there an Israel element in that stuff too? And I just don't know that you can really have the pay dirt. I don't think you can really know at this point. And I don't say that to be negative, but I say that to say,
Liberty.
I mean, what if they?
Even with the USS Liberty, I mean, there are alternative explanations that I think could make sense depending on how you look at it. I'm trying to find the name of the guy now. Somebody sent me an alternative understanding of what happened that I thought was actually very interesting.
We're about to have a break here in a couple of minutes. Do you have time to stay with me longer, Alex?
Unfortunately, I don't. I have another appointment coming
All right, really quick before the end
of
the segment. Then there's the Hitler files that are supposed to come out. As far as I understand, the leader of Argentina is supposed to release all that. He says, "Hey, there's a likelihood that Hitler went to Argentina, didn't die like we were told." See, I mean, I believe that kind of reality check. I think there's a lot of evidence that points to that, but I don't know if we'll know the end of that either.
Yep, that's a very good point, and one of those things where we'll have to see what comes out, but like you said earlier, we need to verify so that we can trust, and I think the presumption should be you can't trust much of anything right now except God and His Word. So
you can trust that God loves us and that He's got this and that He will take care of those who keep His commandments. I can promise you that, ladies and gentlemen, that you can count on. Last question before the end of the hour, and I've been predicting this. I don't want this, but I'm predicting it. The deep state is going to turn Donald Trump into a wartime president. What do you say?
I think that's a very real possibility.
I pray it's not true.
Want a third world war, whether it comes about in the Middle East or in Europe or even in Asia with China and Taiwan. I think they see a global war, a global conflagration as an excellent means to an end, and that end being, of course, a one-world totalitarian economic and political system. So,
do you think they'll pin it on Donald?
They'll probably pin the economic collapse on Donald and potentially the loss of the upcoming war on Donald Trump, or at least they'll try to do that. But, history's not written yet, and we still have an opportunity to influence it. So,
and that's exactly why I'm bringing it up, is I really pray Donald doesn't fall for it. We need to understand that the answer to peace is not more war. The answer to peace is to follow the Prince of Peace, and there is no other way. Final comment to you, Alex.
Well, folks, get active. I mean, don't just listen to the radio. Don't just read the magazines, but take the information you're learning and get active somehow, whether it's running for office, working with people who are running for office, raising up your children in the fear, discipline, admonition, and nurture of the Lord. And I appreciate you having me on the program, Sam. Get over to libertysentinel.org and thenewamerican.com for much more.
And at Liberty Sentinel, you can sign up and help fund it, become an insider too, basically, right?
Absolutely, yep, and we so appreciate the folks who do help us do the work that we do. We travel around the world trying to get the story that the other fake media is missing, and so, every bit helps, and thank you very much, Sam.
God bless you, brother. We'll talk soon.
God bless you, too.
Alex Newman, everybody. I'm telling you right now, he's very unique in the news business. He's a truth teller, to say the least. He's not bought off by anybody. He grounds the truth by documenting all that he does, like very few people I've ever seen. I mean, the guy just does a phenomenal job. I consider him a brother in the sacred cause of liberty. We're brothers in Christ. We're brothers in God, family, and country. I'm just telling you right now, libertysentinel.org for some real news from a truth teller, patriot. I'm talking patriots gone wild, folks. We're getting it done. And the new media continues to march towards taking center stage, just as I've been telling you for the last many years. Hang tight. I've got more. This is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Attorney General Bondi and FBI Director Patel were on hand for this morning's arrest of a 24-year-old illegal alien, allegedly a top lieutenant in the violent MS-13 gang. The man was taken into custody in Woodbridge, Virginia, not far from Washington. Virginia's Governor Glenn Youngkin witnessed the takedown as well. An appeals court is upholding a judge's order requiring the Trump administration to rehire thousands of federal workers.
The government argued that judges can't micromanage federal worker policies, but a split Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals panel turned back the emergency motion. At issue was a lower court judge's order requiring the Trump administration to rehire thousands of probationary workers who were let go in mass firings. The judge found legal problems with the way the firings were carried out. Greg Clugston, Washington.
President Trump says he has a formula for boosting American manufacturing and jobs. A 25% tariff on vehicles and car parts coming into the U.S. Those new tariffs due to take effect next week. Palestinians have chanted against Hamas during anti-war demonstrations in the Gaza Strip, a rare show of public anger against the terrorist group that has long repressed dissent. Hamas is weakened, but it still rules the territory 17 months into the war with Israel. The American economy expanded, a healthy 2.4% annual pace October through December, boosted by a year-end surge in consumer spending. That's according to the Department of Commerce, which is upping its previous estimate of economic growth. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says North Korea has dispatched roughly 3,000 troops to Russia in the first 2 months of the year. Those troops deployed to Ukraine. On Wall Street this morning, stocks are in the red, the Dow down 187. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Financing a home, especially in today's market, is one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your family. Work with a mortgage company that puts you first. I do. Work with a lender founded on biblical principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I do. It's Mike Gallagher for the only mortgage company I've used for almost a decade now when financing or refinancing Fellowship Home Loans. I'm friends with the owners, Mike and Brian. I even have them on my show occasionally. I know the care their team puts into every single customer. I can personally tell you that it's a smooth, stress-free process. And that's due to Fellowship's level of service and expertise that puts you in the right loan for your family and your goals. There's a reason Fellowship Home Loans is flooded with 5-star reviews. Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began, Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Time flies when you're having fun. Alex Newman, what a hero, man. LibertySentinel.org doing a phenomenal job talking about the new media taking center stage, talking about the mainstream press just flat out melting down. Alex Newman doing a great job. Dear friend, great brother. Also, Brian Rust doing a phenomenal job. FreeWaterCoinCo.com. Take possession of your metals. You've got a friend in the honest money business. Now I want to talk about RFK Jr. Oh, boy. He says he's revamping the HHS, letting go a bunch of people. Revamping the whole system. I mean, go RFK Jr. We need it. We need it fast. We need it now. Every single government institution needs to go through this reality check. Let go of all these clown employees. It turns out, I mean, if you study Doge and study what's going on, I mean, they've spent money on parties and cars and, I mean, just all kinds of perversions. And we, the taxpayers, have been paying for it. It is absolutely out of control. Anyway, I commend RFK Jr. I think it needs to be done. And the sooner the better. What do we need to do to help is my response. Because it's absolutely out of control. We've got to take this $6 trillion budget yearly that we're dealing with, if that's even the real number. And we've got to just reduce that to the proper role of government. I mean, how much does it take to really run the general government? If you were to just take every constitutional action or every constitutional mandate or authority or whatever you want, whatever term you want to use, line item, how much would it really cost to fund government? $1 trillion a year? $500 billion? I don't know, but it's significantly. I mean, I'm talking, well, I would say this, 90% of the government's bogus and a waste and not necessary and unconstitutional, right? I mean, everybody can debate that number, but just go with me. 90%. So, I mean, if it's $6 trillion budget, I mean, it would be down to, let's see, what's 10% of 6 trillion. 1 trillion is like 15%, right? So what would it be? 600 billion. Is 600 billion 10% of 6 trillion, Zach? I'm trying to figure this out. When the numbers get so big, it's hard for me to. Is that right, Liz? 10% of 6 trillion is 600 billion? Nobody's sure because you got to figure out all the zeros and do all the stuff, right? Nobody wants to get it wrong because the numbers are so massive you can't even know. But anyway, all I know is I think it's 600 billion. So, you know, I mean, you could really decrease the size and scope of government. But the problem is whenever Elon Musk digs in, then the judges say no. And then Congress does nothing. Congress could literally codify it. But instead of reducing spending, instead of taking, for example, the $1 trillion budget that we spend yearly on military, and chopping it to $500 billion like Donald Trump said we could do without even blinking an eye. I mean, some people say we could really take care of America and protect America on, what, 7% of the current budget? Wow, what's 7% of $1 trillion? So, I mean, these numbers are just so huge, so mammoth, so hard to even understand. I mean, it takes literally a calculator to make sure you're even right with your zeros, right? I mean, it's just insanity on steroids. Anyway, I digress, except to say, hey, good for RFK Jr. He's doing a phenomenal job. We need to do that across the government big time. And shame on Congress, because what they did was pass it on to a spending bill and give themselves just carte blanche to spend us into oblivion for the next 6 months. Shame on them. They should have taken action. They should have taken direction from Doge. They should have taken direction from Rand Paul. They already had all that knowledge and pay dirt. There's been organizations for the last 10, 20 years that have been breaking down, 30 years or more, breaking down the proper role of government, the legitimate expenditures of government. There's reports on waste by National Taxpayers Union, Citizens, in Waste for Government, or tax organizations, or Rand Paul does a yearly report, Senator Rand Paul, on this stuff. I mean, they have plenty of guidance to save plenty of money, and they just simply didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to go to reduce spending. They just wanted to, do business as usual and kick the can down the road. Shame on Mike Johnson. Shame on those in the House. The only one I got to give an absolute shout out, kudos to, is Thomas Massie. He voted against it. Good on him for doing so, and I wish others would have done the same. I wish enough Americans who are elected would actually pay attention to their constituents and actually decrease costs and actually demand accountability and transparency. But we didn't get it. And I doubt we're going to get it in September when the 6-month, omnibus kick the can down the road spending bill, whatever, continuing resolution, whatever they call that garbage. I basically would say, hey, I doubt they're going to do it even then. I mean, I think they might have a token. We're going to reduce this money. We're going to do this and that. But I even saw an article just yesterday or the day before. They're like, yeah, we're going to work on this in July. We're going to have to push that back. So they're already starting to wimp, and they're going to fail. And the Democrats, if we're not very careful, are going to be taking over next mid-cycle elections. I hate to say it. I hate to see it. I don't want it. But I'm telling you, they're squandering all the reason we put them in office, just like they've always done before. I mean, my first real solid glimpse of that was when I got into politics in the 90s. The Republican freshman revolution, led by Newt Gingrich, was supposed to be a big old new contract with America, change the game. They've failed multiple times since then. And so I don't really see a sea change. I wish we would. I pray we do, but I just don't have the confidence, because how many times can you burn me and then have me have hope and confidence in it? It's like hopium. Quit smoking hopium, people. You can't hope for false things. Unless we turn to God, you're not going to have a moral society. Unless we turn to God, you're not going to be protected from the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. Okay, you're just not going to have it. Anyway, I digress. All right, Tucker Carlson did a phenomenal job. He had on this incredible doctor talking about how COVID and the vaccines to COVID has caused just absolutely rampant, aggressive, hardcore, extreme cancers. And they're not going away. They're just getting way worse. And he documents this well. It's like a 2-hour, hour-and-a-half interview. It's so long I can't play it all. But I wanted to play the start of it and give you an indication. Even Tucker Carlson, of all people, digging into this. Here it is.
Doctor, thanks a lot for coming on. So you spent your life, 50 years working on treatments for cancer. And when you started, it seemed like we were moving in the West toward the elimination of cancer. Smoking was a huge emphasis. Get rid of tobacco, and cancer rates will drop. Obviously, smoking does cause cancer, and we got rid of it basically, but cancer rates went up. And that is a very rarely remarked upon mystery that really bothers me. Tell us, since you made billions of dollars selling your companies, but you're still involved in medical research, which I admire. Where are we now with cancer? What are you seeing in cancer rates?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tucker Carlson asks that question, kind of lays that out. We thought, hey, when they get rid of smoking would reduce cancer rates. When we thought this and that would happen, would get rid of cancer would go down. I think RFK is really onto something here, and that's why I link these things together. Okay, the cancer rates. The doctor, what are you seeing? What's going on? And there wasn't the candid reality check during COVID that we needed. Everybody was too scared to speak up. But now people are starting to really lay out the truth. And I told you that truth from the beginning on this radio program, not because I'm an expert on cancer, but I know this. I've studied vaccines for literally decades. And I'm telling you right now, it's Russian roulette with these vaccines. That's why you have the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Fund. Because if the vaccine companies had to take care of the meltdowns when they happen, they'd go out of business. Their products are not safe. They're not effective. That's an absolute fake news lie. Anyway, here's the continuation of this interview with Tucker Carlson.
Really worrisome to me now is not just the rate, but the population in which it's increasing, i.e. the younger people. So we're clearly seeing an increase in certain types of cancer, like pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer. And we're seeing that colon cancer, and we're seeing it in younger people.
Just to set a baseline, what's the 10-year survival rate for pancreatic cancer?
It's horrible. I think, if you have pancreatic cancer today, I don't think there is a 10-year survival rate, so to speak.
Yes.
What there is, however, if you have patients who are what we call failed all standard care, the survival rate is in months. You measure it in 2 months.
Yes. That's certainly my understanding, having watched a lot of people die of it. So advanced pancreatic cancer is a death sentence. Where are you seeing it now?
Well, I got to tell you a really concerning story. It's not only am I seeing it now, I'm seeing it in younger people. And for the first time in my career, when I left UCLA, I was doing all the Whipples, which is a surgery to actually remove most of the pancreas, a very big operation.
You're a surgeon as well.
I'm a surgeon.
Yes.
And I was also doing pancreas transplants for type 2 diabetes and islet cell transplants and stem cell transplants. So I had this diverse activity as a UCLA assistant professor. But I never saw pancreatic cancer in children. And the greatest surprise to me was a 13-year-old with metastatic pancreatic cancer that the family called us to help. And to me, that was not only devastating, it emphasized the idea that we're seeing people with higher incidence of pancreatic cancer and younger. Right now in our clinic, we have 45-year-old, 50-year-old. And what was sad about this young boy, by the time he came to see us, he had exhausted all standards of care. And he came from Butler, Pennsylvania. And all the major medical centers really had exhausted all their therapy. And by the time he came to see us, his body was ridden and he passed away. So seeing cancers now in younger people and almost a rise, almost like I don't want to call it a non-infectious pandemic, but this is what I think is going to worrisome in the world, not just in the United States, but largely in the United States. We're beginning to see this, and it's really worrisome.
A non-infectious pandemic of cancer, including deadly cancers.
Correct.
Like pancreatic. In your career, which I think is about 50 years of working on this, how many 13-year-old pancreatic cancer patients have you seen?
Never. I inquired around because it bothered me so much now of why this is happening. So Dr. Stephen Day was a good friend who was trained with me at UCLA when I was at UCLA. He's now at the Angeles Clinic, and I called him and he said, "Listen, Patrick, I'm now seeing an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old with colon cancer. Colon cancer. We've never seen that. We're seeing now 30-year-old, 40-year-old ladies, young ladies with ovarian cancer. So this is a
all right,
real phenomenon."
Ladies and gentlemen. This is serious. And Tucker Carlson really drills into this, doctor. I don't have time to play it all. I wish I did. Because Tucker has the funds and the ability. It's hard for me to find and get doctors on like this. It's not that I could never do it. It's just that I got a day job. I just don't have time to do all that stuff. But what tremendous reporting from Tucker on this. And I doubt if he worked for the big mainstream press networks that he'd ever be able to do an interview like that. This doctor is literally telling you that there's new cancers. There's cancers happening to younger people. They've never seen it before, ever, and it is absolutely on the rise. They even hinted at pandemic kind of levels. A non-infectious pandemic kind of a level, and you go, whoa. And I look at this and I go, you know what? Dr. Lorraine Day used to be a friend of mine, and we used to interview her back in the day years and years ago. And she used to talk about a lot of this coming on. And now that COVID's hit, now they have these vaccines. They're not vaccines. That's a lie. They are literally experimental gene therapies going on. And these experimental gene therapies where they do the gene splicing and they do the this and they do the that and they do all that stuff is causing these cancers. And then what they'll do when we say it's causing these cancers, they'll say you're lying, you don't have any evidence. And then what will happen is that we'll debate this for years and years and years and years. Oh, it can't be the vaccine causing autism. It can't be the vaccine causing this. It can't be this. It can't be that. And we find out they're not even vaccines. They're literally gene therapies. And whether you can point to the exclusively this or that being the cause isn't even important at this point. I don't want to get off on a debate about that. The fact is, whatever's happening in our society, whether it be the food, whether it be genetically modified foods, whether it be vaccines, whether it be environment, the air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we drink, the things that we put into our body chemically. I mean, there's literally hundreds of thousands of chemicals in all of our food and our drinks and everything else. And the concoctions, the cacophony of all these different things together, somehow whatever we're doing is causing mass cancer, mass illness. And it's not debatable that it's happening. We can debate the sources if we want to, but it's not debatable that it's happening. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. Final story in seconds. You're listening to the one and only Liberty Roundtable live radio program, ladies and gentlemen. We do our very best to find the news the networks refuse to use and put it all on the table. How's that? Spread the word to your friends, would you please? We are nationally syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Network, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word. Back in seconds.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for your patience. Wow, there's so much going on in the news. It's just shocking to report. Anyway, the bottom line is with this Tucker Carlson interview about cancers on the rise with this medical doctor, the medical doctor talks about the conflict of interest. This is really, really an important tidbit in the long, great Tucker Carlson interview. Go to tuckercarlson.com if you want to check out more. It's also available at WND.com. Our dear friends over at WorldNet Daily, WND.com. Anyway, you can check that out. It's great detail, but I wanted to highlight it for you. We want to bring all things of interest to your attention, and I want to be a guy to help tell the truth on this thing. But anyway, the conflict of interest is tremendous. It's all about money. It's all about fame and fortune. It's all about, the mainstream press literally foments it, focuses on it, because Big Pharma funds the media, then the media pays back Big Pharma by, participating in that conflict of interest, and it goes on and on and on. It is something. Anyway, I thought that would bring that to your attention. All right, now, Donald Trump, you've heard of the green card, right? That's where people come to the United States, get a special permission called a green card to be here. They're not a citizen, but they're here legally based on the green card. Donald wants to roll out the gold card, and he wants to sell it at, $5 million a piece? And anyway, it's a long story short, but they say it brought in $5 billion in a single day. It's just crazy. And they say that this thing could literally bring in trillions of dollars, like $5 trillion. And they say when we have a national debt of over $36 trillion, whether you agree with it or not, the headline basically says Trump's bad idea brings in, big money. And, do you want that? And so then some people say, how dare Donald? How dare him kind of reward the rich at the expense of the rest of us? And they go on this big old rant. But the article written about this brings up some very important things to understand. This is no different. The rich have always had plenty of money. They get to sit in the front of the line, or they get advanced to the front of the line because of their money. I mean, it's true in every aspect of our society, and why wouldn't it be true here? And the important thing they talk about is, look, let's not debate that. It's always been the case. Rich have always had their perks. They've always had their wealth. They've always had their protection. They've always been first in line. That hasn't changed. It's the world over. The only difference America brought to the table is they brought an economic engine that could reward the middle class and make us all wealthy. They all boats rise in a constitutional republic like the United States. And so that's the only difference. But it's always been that way. The wealthy, those who prosper have always had special privileges and done well. This is no different. And the important piece to this discussion is, do you like the gold card plan or do you hate it? And, do you want to bring in people that have money? Yeah, I do, because those people are the ones that provide jobs. I mean, you talk about trickle-down economics. Some say it's a lie. I say it's reality. The more I do in radio and the more money that comes into my radio program, in my radio network and the things that I'm doing, the more people I can employ. Don't tell me trickle-down economics doesn't work. If I'm doing great on my videos are making money. Pretty soon I need 2 video editors, not 1. And then 3 video editors, not 2, right? And so that's the case. So I want to bring wealthy people to the United States. So the next question is, do we believe in special privilege? You know what? Society has always been that way. Okay? It's always been that way. And if you don't believe me, what about a front row ticket to a concert? I can't afford one. Never sat on the front row in a concert. I'm not wealthy enough. See, it's that way with everything we do. So you're not going to change that reality check, okay? The question becomes, will we vet people who come here enough? If they're wealthy, how do we vet them to make sure we're not bringing in the bad guys? Terrorists can put a lot of money together, too. Well, they shouldn't be able to buy a gold ticket or a gold, card to come to the United States. How do we balance all that and get through that? And that's really, in my opinion, the only question left. You can say it's a bad idea, but what if we could pay down $5 trillion of our debt? If we literally decreased government scope and size because of Doge, we really then paid down $5 trillion of our debt and brought a bunch of people here that would bring jobs with them, changed the game to where a lot of the money that's paid that's overseas, we brought it back to the United States, and we built back our economic engine. We became a hub of manufacturing and a hub of agriculture and farming. And I mean, those are the key components to real prosperity and success is agriculture / farming and manufacturing. Without those, you're just nothing but a pass the money around society. If you want to generate wealth, it comes from the core of manufacturing and farming, folks. Agriculture and manufacturing are the keys to the kingdom, if you will. And I appreciate service-based societies and economies, but at the same time, if you don't have that underpinning of where real wealth comes from, look, your groceries don't come from the grocery store. I know that's where you go get them, but they come from the farm. Okay, you don't buy goods and services, or goods at least, unless they're manufactured somewhere. And those who have those hubs of real wealth producing, the producers, if you will, that's where, okay, so we need to bring those people and that idea. We need to make America a safe haven of tax reduction. One of the best advice I've heard an economist give Trump and other people, make sure that we are the lowest tax nation in the country, in the world. If you want money to flood to the United States, make sure we're the least taxing nation in the world on business. And I'm telling you right now, the economic engine will take off. I'm telling you, that will grant the economic engine wings like you have never seen, baby. And that's the key to the exercise. And so we've got to understand Donald Trump, far from perfect, but he does understand business. He does have innovative, creative ideas, and we can't be down on all of them. This gold card thing, I think, is brilliant. And yes, does it reward the rich above the rest? Absolutely. It's a sad tale. But the rich are the ones that can bring prosperity to us all. Those who are producers, those who are thinkers, those who are innovators. We need to bring that economic think tank to America, apply the economic engine of the founding fathers, in other words, the free market, to that. And boy, howdy, do we got something going on. And then we got to start manufacturing. And we got to basically become the greatest agricultural breadbasket of the world. That is the key to success. And I applaud Donald Trump on this, and I hope we do more of it. We need more of it, folks, and we need it soon. We need it fast. And we need to make sure that the supply chains can be built all the way to the United States with raw materials and everything else. I'd love to bring manufacturing for some of the companies that I work for back to the United States. But until we get the supply chain of raw materials, it's a tough road to hoe. It can be done if we all work together. We got to make America moral again, and we got to make America great again. Will you help me promote God, family, and country? Will you help me protect life, liberty, and property? Will you fund what we're doing? LovingLiberty.net, LibertyRoundtable.com. Spread the word, share the love, tell the tale, and get involved, would you please? I'm Sam Bushman, and that's another Liberty Roundtable Live, hard-hitting 2 hours of long-form, incredible talk radio. LovingLiberty.net. Donate today, would you please? Be liberal. Start with a 1 and add zeros, please. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. We declare we the people, along with the grace of the Almighty, we can and will restore our grand old republic, but you got to get involved, make it a great day, and choose the right, will you? God save the Republic of the United States of America.